6 months ago, if you had asked me whether I completely trusted my wife, I would have laughed. Not because the question was funny, because I couldn't imagine a world where I didn't trust her. Her name was Megan. We had been married for 7 years. We met at a coffee shop when I was 27. She accidentally took my drink, realized it wasn't hers, apologized about 5 times, and somehow that became the beginning of our entire relationship. 7 years later, we had a house, a dog named Cooper, 2 cars, and a routine so predictable that I could tell you exactly what most of our Fridays would look like. I would finish work around 6. Megan would usually get home 30 minutes later. We would order pizza. Cooper would sit beside the couch pretending he wasn't waiting for us to drop something. Then Megan and I would watch a movie. Sometimes we would talk for hours. Sometimes we wouldn't say much at all. It wasn't an exciting life, but it was peaceful. And after everything I'd been through growing up, I had learned to appreciate peaceful. My younger brother Ryan had died 6 years earlier. He was 24. I was 26. The official story was simple. Ryan was driving home late one night when another vehicle crossed the center line. There was a collision. The other driver died at the scene. Ryan died before the ambulance arrived. The police called it an accident. My family accepted that explanation, or at least I thought we did. My mother never talked about it. My father became quieter, and I tried to move on. Then, one Saturday morning, my wife told me she was going to visit her sister. It sounded completely normal, until I noticed the way she said it. She was standing in our kitchen with her phone in her hand. She looked distracted. "I'm going to see Rachel this weekend," she said. I looked up from my laptop. "Tomorrow? No, today." "You're staying overnight?" "Probably," I smiled. "Everything okay with Rachel?" "Yeah." She looked down at her phone. "She just wants some company." Rachel lived about 2 hours away. Megan visited her every few months. There was nothing unusual about that, but something about Megan's expression bothered me. "You sure you're okay?" She looked at me and smiled. "Of course." She walked over and kissed me. "I'll be back tomorrow." "Drive safe." "I will." "I love you." She smiled. "I love you too." That was the last completely normal conversation we had. The next morning, Megan woke up before me. When I opened my eyes, she was already dressed. She was standing near the bedroom door with a small overnight bag. I checked the clock. It was 6:48. "You didn't wake me." "I thought you needed sleep." She smiled. Then she leaned down and kissed my forehead. "I'll see you tomorrow." I sat up. "Okay." She walked downstairs. A few minutes later, I heard the garage door open. Then I heard her car start. I watched through the bedroom window as she backed out of the driveway. She waved. I waved back. Then she disappeared around the corner. I had no idea that later that same day, I would be staring at a map on my phone, trying to understand why my wife's car was 300 miles away from where she said she was going. At first, everything was normal. I made coffee. I took Cooper for a walk. I spent the morning working. Around noon, I received a notification from the app connected to our car. Normally, I ignored those notifications, but this one caught my attention. It said the vehicle location had been updated. I opened the app. A map appeared. There was a blue dot. I stared at it. Then I zoomed out. The blue dot wasn't anywhere near Rachel's house. It wasn't even close. It was in a town called Fairview. I had never heard of Fairview. I checked the distance. Approximately 300 miles from our home. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. I assumed it was a GPS error. I closed the app. A few minutes later, I opened it again. The car was still there. I checked the time. Megan had left our house a little over 5 hours earlier. Even if she had driven directly to Fairview, she would have had to travel much farther than the 2 hours to Rachel's house. I called her. She answered after 4 rings. Hey, where are you?" There was a pause. "At Rachel's." Something about her voice made me uncomfortable. Everything okay?" "Yeah? Why?" "The car app says you're in Fairview." Silence. It lasted maybe 2 seconds, but I noticed it. "What?" "The car. It says it's in Fairview." "That's weird." "Yeah. Probably the GPS." "Probably." Then she said something that confused me. "I told you I was staying with Rachel." "I know." "Then why are you checking where I am?" "I'm not checking where you are. You just called me because you saw my location." "I saw the car location." "It's basically the same thing." I tried to laugh. "Okay, Detective Megan, relax." She didn't laugh. I'll call you later. Then she hung up. I stared at my phone. Something was wrong. I just didn't know what. About 20 minutes later, another notification appeared. Vehicle location updated. I opened it. The blue dot had moved. It was now several miles away from the previous location. I zoomed in. There was an address. It was a residential property, not a hotel, not a restaurant, not a gas station, a house. I wrote the address down. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity, maybe instinct, maybe some part of me already knew I was looking at something I wasn't supposed to see. I searched the address online. There wasn't much information, just a street name and an old property listing. The house looked small, white walls, dark roof, large trees in front. It looked completely ordinary. I called Megan again, no answer. I texted her, everything okay? Nothing. 20 minutes passed, then an hour. At 6:13 that evening, my phone buzzed. A message from Megan. Don't worry about me. I stared at the screen, then another message arrived. I'll explain tomorrow. I read those two messages again and again. I wanted to believe there was a simple explanation. Maybe Rachel had needed help with something. Maybe Megan had gotten lost. Maybe she had met someone who needed help. But then another notification appeared. The car had moved again. This time it was parked outside a motel about 10 miles away from the house. I sat on the edge of my bed. Why would Megan be at a motel? I called her. No answer. I called Rachel. She answered almost immediately. Hey, Rachel, sorry for calling so late. It's okay. What's up? I hesitated. Is Megan there? There was a pause. No. My stomach dropped. What? Megan isn't here. I sat down. Are you sure? Yeah. Why? She told me she was coming to see you. Rachel sounded confused. She didn't come here. I thanked her and ended the call. For several minutes, I just stared at the wall. Megan had lied. That was the first thing I knew for certain. She hadn't gone to Rachel's house. She had driven 300 miles in the opposite direction. She had visited a house I'd never heard of. Then she had gone to a motel, and now she wasn't answering my calls. At 2:07 in the morning, my phone buzzed. It was Megan. Stop looking for me. I typed a response. Where are you? She replied almost immediately. I'm safe. I wrote, Rachel says you're not with her. No response. Megan, what is going on? Nothing. I called her. The call went directly to voicemail. I barely slept. At around 7:30 the next morning, I heard the garage door open. Megan was home. She walked into the kitchen carrying her overnight bag. She looked exhausted, but she also looked angry. Morning, she said. I stared at her. Where were you? She put the bag down. I told you, I was with Rachel. No, you weren't. She froze. Rachel said you never went there. Megan looked away. She misunderstood. How do you misunderstand an entire weekend? She sighed. I went somewhere first. Where? Fairview. My heart started beating faster. Why? I needed to meet someone. Who? She didn't answer. I stepped closer. Megan. She finally looked at me, and for a moment, I saw something in her eyes that I had never seen before. Fear, not guilt, fear. I can't tell you yet. I felt like the floor had disappeared. Can't tell me? She shook her head. Not yet. Are you cheating on me? Her eyes widened. No. Then what? I said I can't tell you. I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked quietly, is someone threatening you? She looked down. That silence was enough. I knew this wasn't about an affair. Something much bigger was happening. But before I could ask another question, Megan said, I need you to trust me. I laughed. It was probably the worst laugh of my life. You lied about where you were. I know. You lied about seeing your sister. I know. You disappeared for 2 days. I know. And now you're asking me to trust you. She started crying. That stopped me. Megan wasn't someone who cried easily. She wiped her face. I promise I'm not doing what you think I'm doing. What do I think you're doing? She looked at me. Something that would make you hate me. Then she picked up her bag. I'm going to shower. She walked upstairs. I stood alone in the kitchen. And for the first time in 7 years of marriage, I realized something terrifying. Megan wasn't afraid that I would leave her. She was afraid of what I would discover. If Megan had lied about visiting her sister, then where had she really gone? And more importantly, who had she gone there to meet? I couldn't stop thinking about those questions. After she went upstairs that morning, I stayed in the kitchen for almost an hour. I didn't move. I just stared at the spot where she had been standing. Something that would make you hate me. What could possibly be so terrible that my own wife was afraid I would hate her? Was she involved in something illegal? Was someone threatening her? Was there another man? Or was the truth connected to something much older? brother, something connected to my family. I tried to convince myself that I was overthinking everything. Maybe there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe Fairview was nothing. Maybe the house was nothing. Maybe the strange messages were just a coincidence. But then I remembered what Rachel had said. Megan never came here. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was a lie. And the more I thought about it, the more questions appeared. Why had Megan driven 300 miles? Why had she gone to that particular house? Why had she stayed at a motel? And why had she told me not to look for her? I needed answers, but I also knew I couldn't simply ask Megan again. She had already lied to me once. What would stop her from lying again? That evening, Megan acted like everything was normal. She cooked dinner. She asked me how my day was. She even joked about Cooper stealing food from the kitchen. I smiled when I was supposed to smile. I laughed when I was supposed to laugh. But inside, I was watching her. Every movement, every reaction, every time she checked her phone. And then I noticed something. Whenever her phone vibrated, she immediately looked nervous. Who was messaging her? What were they saying? And why was she hiding it from me? After dinner, I went upstairs. I waited about 20 minutes. Then I heard Megan's phone vibrate downstairs. I quietly walked back toward the staircase. I wasn't trying to spy on her. At least that's what I told myself. I stopped when I heard her talking. Her voice was low. "You shouldn't have contacted me." There was a pause. Then she said, "He doesn't know anything." Another pause. "I told you I can't do this anymore." I couldn't hear the other person. Then Megan said something that made my heart stop. "Ryan is dead. You need to let him go." I froze. Why was she talking about my brother? Who was she talking to? And why did that person care about Ryan? I stepped closer. Megan suddenly stopped talking. Then she said, "No, don't come here." Another pause. I said no. Then she ended the call. I quickly went upstairs before she could see me. A few minutes later, she entered the bedroom. She looked at me. "You're still awake?" "Yeah." She smiled. "Can't sleep?" "Not really." She changed clothes and got into bed. I looked at her. "Megan?" "Yeah?" "Do you miss Ryan?" She became completely still. "What?" "Ryan, my brother." She looked at me. "Why are you asking?" "I don't know." She didn't answer. Then she turned off the light. "Good night." "Good night." But neither of us slept. The next morning, I made a decision. I needed to find out what was in Fairview. So while Megan was at work, I opened the car app again. The location history was still there. I looked at every location from the weekend. The first location was our house, then the highway, then Fairview, then the house, then the motel, then another location. I zoomed in. It was an old storage facility. Why would she go there? I wrote down the address. Then I searched it online. There wasn't much information. The facility had been abandoned for several years, but something caught my attention. One of the businesses previously registered at that address was called North Star Logistics. I stared at the screen. North Star Logistics. I had heard that name before. My father used to work for a company with that name. But why would Megan's car have been there? What was she looking for? And why had she never told me? I decided to visit the place. I drove there alone. The storage facility was surrounded by a tall metal fence. Most of the buildings looked abandoned. There were broken windows, old signs, weeds growing through the pavement. I walked around the outside. Then I noticed something. One door wasn't locked. I pushed it open. Inside, the building smelled like dust and old paper. There were dozens of empty shelves. Most of the rooms were completely empty. Then I found a small office. There was an old desk inside. On the desk was a photograph. I picked it up. My father was in the photograph. He was standing beside another man. I didn't recognize the man, but underneath the photograph was a handwritten date, October 12th, 2 days before Ryan died. Why was my father here? Who was the man standing beside him? And why had Megan come to this exact place? I took a picture of the photograph with my phone. Then I heard a noise behind me. I turned around. Nobody was there. I walked into the hallway. Nothing. I checked the other rooms. Empty. Then I heard footsteps outside. Someone was walking toward the building. I quickly left through the back door. I got into my car and drove away. I didn't tell Megan. Not yet. That night, I showed her the photograph. I placed it on the kitchen table. She looked at it, then her face went completely white. "Where did you get this?" "Fairview." She looked at me. "You went there?" "Yes." "Michael, why?" "Because I wanted answers." She sat down. "What did you find?" "This." I pointed to my father. "Who is the man beside him?" She stared at the photograph. "I don't know." "Are you sure?" She didn't answer. "Megan, I've seen him before." "Where?" She looked down. "I don't remember." "You just said you've seen him." "I mean, I don't know." I stood up. "You're still lying to me." "No." Then tell me the truth. I am trying. Then try harder. She started crying. I was scared. Of what? Of what would happen if you found out? Found out what? She looked at me. That Ryan's death may not have been an accident. The room went silent. I stared at her. What did you just say? She wiped her tears. I don't know exactly what happened, but you think it wasn't an accident? Yes. Why? Because Ryan was investigating something. What? I don't know. Then how do you know he was investigating something? She didn't answer. I stepped closer. Megan, what did you know about my brother? She looked at me. More than I ever told you. That sentence hurt more than anything else. What does that mean? She took a deep breath. Before Ryan died, he contacted me. My heart started beating faster. When? About a week before the accident. Why? He wanted help. With what? Finding someone. Who? She looked at the photograph. The man standing beside your father. I looked at the picture. Who is he? I don't know. Then what was Ryan looking for? Megan shook her head. I never found out. I stared at her. You're hiding something. She didn't deny it. Then my phone vibrated. Unknown number. I opened the message. There was only one sentence. Ask Megan what happened on October 14th. I looked at her. She had seen the message. Her face changed. What happened on October 14th? I asked. She didn't answer. Megan, she looked down. That's the night Ryan died. I know. No. She looked at me. You don't know everything. Then tell me. She took a deep breath. I was there. My heart stopped. Where? At the accident. You were there? She nodded. Why? I was following someone. Who? Daniel. I remembered the name. Her old boyfriend. The man she said was dead. Why were you following Daniel? 'Cause he told me he had found something. What? I don't know. Then what happened? She closed her eyes. I arrived too late. Too late for what? For Ryan. I couldn't speak. She continued. I heard the crash. And then I drove toward the sound. Oh, what did you see? Ryan's car. And another vehicle. Whose? She looked at me. Your father's. I felt cold. My father was there. She nodded. What did he do? He got out of his car and he walked toward Ryan. Was Ryan alive? For a few seconds, I stared at her. What happened next? Megan started crying. Your father took something from Ryan's car. What? His phone. I felt my hands shaking. Why? I don't know. Where is it now? She looked at me. I have it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You have Ryan's phone? She nodded. Where? Hidden. Why didn't you tell me? Because Ryan told me never to show it to anyone. Not even me? Especially not you. I stared at her. Why? She looked directly into my eyes. Because Ryan believed someone in your family was responsible for what happened. I couldn't breathe. Who? She whispered, I don't know. Then she stood up and walked toward the bedroom. I watched her disappear. A few seconds later, I heard the bedroom door lock. I stood alone in the kitchen, and for the first time, I wondered if the person I trusted most in the world had been hiding the truth from me since the day we met. But one question kept coming back to me. If Megan really wanted to protect me, why had she kept Ryan's phone hidden for 6 years? And what exactly had my brother recorded on it? I couldn't sleep that night. The question kept repeating in my head. What exactly had Ryan recorded on that phone? And why had Megan hidden it from me for 6 years? Around 2 in the morning, I heard footsteps downstairs. I got out of bed and quietly walked toward the staircase. Megan was standing in the living room. She was holding the old phone. The same phone she had told me was hidden. She was staring at the screen. I didn't say anything. Then I heard her whisper, please don't do this. Who was she talking to? There was no one else in the room. I walked down the stairs. Megan immediately turned around. Michael, what are you doing? She quickly put the phone behind her back. Nothing. That's Ryan's phone, isn't it? She didn't answer. Megan, she looked at me. Yes, turn it on. I can't. Why? Because the battery is dead. Then charge it. She shook her head. You don't understand. What don't I understand? This phone isn't just evidence. Then what is it? She looked terrified. It's a warning? A warning from Ryan? She nodded. How? He knew he was being watched. I stepped closer. What did he record? I don't know everything. But you've had the phone for 6 years. I was afraid to open everything. Why? Because some files were locked. I stared at her. How do you know? Because I tried. What's the password? I don't know. I reached for the phone. Megan pulled it away. Michael, please, give it to me. No? Why? Because if we open it, they will know. Who? She looked toward the windows. The people who are still watching us. I felt a chill. Are you saying someone is watching this house? She didn't answer. That was answer enough. I looked through the window. The street was empty, but suddenly every shadow looked suspicious. Every parked car looked like it could be someone waiting. I turned back to Megan. Charge the phone. She hesitated. Then she handed it to me. We connected it to a charger. Nothing happened. For several minutes, the screen remained black. Then suddenly it turned on. The battery icon appeared. 1%. The phone automatically restarted. Ryan's old wallpaper appeared. It was a photograph of our family, my mother, my father, Ryan, and me. I stared at it. For a moment, everything felt normal again. Then I opened the phone. There were dozens of files. Most were ordinary photographs, but one folder had no name, just a symbol. I opened it. There were 12 audio recordings. The first was dated October 10th. I pressed play. Ryan's voice filled the room. I think someone is following me. The recording stopped. I looked at Megan. We opened the second file. Ryan spoke again. I checked the car twice. Nothing. Third file. I told Dad. Fourth, he told me to stop asking questions. Fifth, Mom knows. I paused. Why did my mother know? The sixth recording began. Ryan sounded scared. If anything happens to me, don't trust anyone. I looked at Megan. Anyone? She nodded. The seventh recording was only a few seconds long. There was background noise. Then Ryan whispered, "He's here." The recording ended. I opened the eighth. There was silence for several seconds. Then a man's voice appeared. "You should have listened to your father." My heart stopped. It wasn't Ryan. It was another man. I looked at Megan. "Who is that?" She shook her head. "I don't know." The voice continued. "You don't understand what you're dealing with." Then the recording ended. I opened the ninth file. This time I heard Ryan breathing heavily. He sounded like he was running. Then he whispered, "Michael, if you ever hear this." There was a long pause. "I need you to know that none of this is your fault." I felt tears in my eyes. Ryan, the recording continued. "You trusted the wrong person." Then the file ended. I stared at the screen. Who was the wrong person? My father? My mother? Megan? Someone else? I opened the 10th recording. This one was different. There were several voices. Ryan, my mother, and another man. I couldn't understand everything at first. Then I heard my mother's voice. "You promised you wouldn't hurt my sons." The man replied, "I never promised that." My blood went cold. My mother said, "If you touch Michael, I'll go to the police." The man laughed. "You won't." "Why?" "Because you know what happens to people who talk." The recording ended. I looked at Megan. "Who was that man?" She was crying. "I don't know." "You're lying." "I'm not." "You've heard that voice before." She shook her head. "No." I opened the 11th file. There was only one sentence. Ryan's voice whispered, "The person you're looking for is closer than you think." Then the recording ended. The final file was locked. A password was required. I tried Ryan's birthday. Wrong. My birthday? Wrong. My mother's birthday? Wrong. Then Megan whispered, "Try October 14th." I entered it. The phone unlocked. A single video appeared. I pressed to play. The screen showed a dark room. Ryan was sitting in a chair. He looked exhausted. He looked directly into the camera. "Michael," I stopped breathing. "If you're watching this, I'm probably gone." He paused. "I wanted to tell you everything." His eyes filled with tears. "But I couldn't." He looked toward the door, then back at the camera. "Someone in our family is working with them." My heart started pounding. "I don't know who," Ryan continued, "but I know they have access to everything." He leaned closer. "They know where you live. They know where you work. They know who you love." Then he whispered, "And they know about Megan." I looked at my wife. She covered her mouth. Ryan continued, "Michael, I'm sorry. If Megan is still with you, there's a reason." My eyes widened. "She knows more than she told you." The video suddenly glitched. Then Ryan said something that made both of us freeze. "Don't trust the person who tells you they are trying to protect you." The screen went black. I slowly looked at Megan. Neither of us spoke. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Nobody spoke. "Hello?" Silence. Then a man's voice whispered, "You shouldn't have opened the phone." The call ended. I looked at Megan. "Who was that?" She shook her head. Then we heard something outside. A car door slammed. Megan grabbed my arm. "Turn off the lights." I switched them off. We stood in complete darkness. Another car door slammed. Then another. Someone was outside. I looked through the curtain. Two people were standing across the street. One of them was holding a phone. Then the phone in my hand vibrated. A message appeared. "We're outside." My heart started pounding. Another message appeared. "You have 5 minutes." Then the lights outside came back on, and I saw something I never expected. One of the men across the street was my father. My father stood across the street. For several seconds, I couldn't move. Why was he there? Who was the other man? And why had someone just threatened us? Megan grabbed my arm. Don't go outside. I looked at her. That's my father. I know. Then why shouldn't I talk to him? Because we don't know if he's alone. I looked through the window again. My father was staring directly at our house. Then the man beside him turned toward the street. I couldn't see his face, but something about him looked familiar. I stepped away from the window. What do? Megan whispered. We leave. Now? Yes. Where? Anywhere they can't find us. I grabbed my jacket, then my phone vibrated again, another message. Don't take the main road. I showed it to Megan. She stared at the screen. How do they know what we're doing? I didn't answer. We went through the back door. Cooper followed us. I grabbed his leash. We moved quietly through the backyard. Then we heard a voice. Michael! My father. He had followed us. I turned around. He was standing near the fence. Don't run. Stay away from me. Listen to me. You've lied to me my entire life. I know. You knew about Ryan. Yes. You knew he was investigating. Yes. And you knew someone wanted him dead. My father looked down. Yes. I felt anger rising. Then why didn't you save him? I tried. No. You protected yourself. He looked at me. I was afraid. Of Victor. He shook his head. Of your mother. I froze. My mother. She knew something I didn't. What? My father took a breath. She knew who was controlling North Star. Victor. No. Then who? My father looked toward Megan. Megan stepped backward. My father said, someone much closer. I stared at him. Who? Before he could answer, headlights appeared behind him, a black SUV. My father turned. Get down! The SUV accelerated. My father pushed me out of the way. The vehicle stopped at the fence. 2 doors opened. 2 men stepped out. My father grabbed my arm. Run! We ran toward the house. One of the men shouted, stop! I heard footsteps behind us. Megan was running beside me. Cooper was barking. We reached the back door. I pushed it open. We rushed inside. My father locked the door. How long can that hold? Not long. Then what do we do? He looked at me. There's a basement. I stared at him. We don't have a basement. Yes, you do. What? He moved a cabinet. Behind it was a small door. I had lived in that house for 7 years. I had never seen it. My father opened the door. A narrow staircase led downward. Megan stared at him. How did you know that was there? My father didn't answer. We went downstairs. The room was small, dusty. There were boxes everywhere. My father closed the door. A few seconds later, we heard footsteps upstairs. Someone had entered the house. I held my breath. The footsteps moved through the kitchen, then the living room, then the hallway. They stopped above us. Nobody spoke. Then someone kicked the hidden door. Once, twice, 3 times. Megan covered her mouth. My father whispered, stay quiet. The door shook again. Then suddenly, silence. We waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Then we heard a car drive away. My father slowly opened the door. The house was empty. I walked upstairs. The front door was open. The men were gone. I turned toward my father. Tell me everything. He nodded. There isn't much time. What happened to Ryan? Ryan discovered that someone had been using your identity. Using my identity for what? To move money. How? Fake accounts. Why me? Because you were clean. I stared at him. What does that mean? You had no criminal history. You were using me? I wasn't. Then who was? My father looked at Megan. She looked away. I felt my stomach tighten. Why do you keep looking at her? My father said nothing. I turned toward Megan. What aren't you telling me? She started crying. I didn't know. Didn't know what? That they were using you. Who are they? Victor and his people. Then why did Ryan say you knew more than you told me? She looked at me. Because I did. What did you know? She took a deep breath. I knew someone inside the family was helping Victor. Who? I don't know. You're still saying you don't know. I swear, my father interrupted. I know. I looked at him. Who? He said. Sarah? I frowned. Who is Sarah? My mother's friend. I had never heard the name before. My father continued. Your mother trusted her. Why? Because Sarah helped her investigate North Star. Then why would she help Victor? Because she wasn't working for your mother. My heart sank. She was working for Victor. My father nodded. I remembered the photograph. My mother, Ryan, and the unknown woman. Is that Sarah? He nodded. Yes. I pulled out my phone. I searched the photograph. There was nothing. Then I remembered the notebook. Ryan had written several names. One of them was Sarah Bennett. I looked at Megan. Why didn't you tell me about her? I didn't know her name. You expect me to believe that? I never met her. My father looked at me. Your mother did. What happened to Sarah? She disappeared. When? 3 years ago. Is she dead? We don't know. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. A message appeared. Your father is lying. I looked at him, then another message appeared. Ask him where he was the night Ryan died. I stared at my father. Where were you the night Ryan died? He looked at me. I already told you. Tell me again. I was home. The entire night? Yes. Who can prove it? He didn't answer. I stepped closer. Who can prove you were home? He looked down. Your mother. She's dead. I know. So nobody can prove it. My father stayed silent. I felt my heart pounding. Where were you really? He finally looked at me. I was at the warehouse. The room went silent. The same warehouse? Yes. Why? To meet Ryan. Why didn't you tell the police? Because when I arrived, he was already dead. I stared at him. You were there. Yes. You lied. Yes. Why? Because I saw someone leave. Who? My father shook his head. I didn't see his face. Then how do you know it was a man? Because I heard his voice. What did he say? My father looked at me. He said your name. I felt cold. What? He said, Michael will be next. Megan covered her mouth. I couldn't breathe. Why didn't you tell me? Because I thought I could protect you. I laughed bitterly. Everyone keeps saying that. Then my father said something that made me stop laughing. Ryan wasn't the target. I stared at him. What? You were. The room went completely silent. Ryan discovered the plan. What plan? To use you. Use me for what? To make it look like you were responsible for the money. I felt sick. They wanted to frame me? My father nodded. Why? Because someone needed to take the blame. Who? Victor. I shook my head. Why would Victor need me? Because he knew the investigation was getting close. I looked at Megan. Then why did you marry me? She started crying. I told you. No, I want the truth. She looked at me. I was supposed to investigate you. My heart sank. But then, I fell in love with you. When did you decide to protect me? The night Ryan died. I stared at her. You were there. Yes. You saw my father. Yes. You took Ryan's phone. Yes. Why? Because Ryan gave it to me before he died. I froze. What? He was still alive when I reached him. My heart stopped. What did he say? Megan wiped her tears. He grabbed my hand. What did he say? She looked directly at me. He said, don't let them find Michael. I couldn't speak. And then, he gave me his phone. What else? He said one more thing. What? Megan whispered. Find Sarah. I looked at my father. He looked terrified. Then my phone vibrated. A new message appeared. You finally understand. Then another. Now find Sarah before we do. I stared at the message. Find Sarah before we do. Whoever had been sending these messages knew everything. They knew about Ryan. They knew about Megan. They knew about my father about Megan. They knew about my father. And somehow, they knew we were looking for Sarah. I looked at my father. Where can we find her? He shook his head. I don't know. You're lying again. I'm not. You knew about Sarah. I knew her years ago. Then where would she go? My father thought for a moment. Your mother had a place. What place? A cabin. Where? About an hour north of here. Does Sarah know about it? I don't know. I looked at Megan. Then that's where we're going. My father shook his head. No? Why? Because if they are watching us, that's the first place they'll expect us to go. Then where? He looked at me. There's another place. Where? The old North Star warehouse. I frowned. I thought it was abandoned. It is. Why would we go there? Because Ryan left something there. What? I don't know. I stared at him. You've got to be kidding me. I'm not. How do you know? Ryan told me. When? The day before he died. I felt my anger returning. Oh, why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid you'd go looking for it. And now? Now you already know too much. We left the house before sunrise. Megan drove. My father sat in the passenger seat. I sat in the back. Nobody spoke for almost 20 minutes. Then my father said, "Turn left." Megan followed his instructions. We drove deeper into an industrial area. Old buildings appeared on both sides of the road. Finally, we stopped in front of a massive warehouse. The sign above the entrance was almost completely destroyed, but I could still read two words: North Star Logistics. I stared at it. "This is where Ryan died." My father nodded. "Yes." I stepped out of the car. The building looked abandoned. Windows were broken. The parking lot was covered in weeds. Megan looked around. "Are you sure nobody comes here?" My father said no. I looked at him. "What does that mean?" "It means I can't be sure." We entered through a broken side door. Inside, everything was dark. I turned on my phone flashlight. Rows of empty shelves stretched into the distance. There were old desks, broken computers, boxes, and paperwork scattered across the floor. Then I noticed something. A red line had been painted on the wall. It led toward a hallway. I followed it. Megan grabbed my arm. "Wait." "Why?" She pointed at the floor. There were footprints. Fresh footprints. Someone had been here recently. My father whispered, "We're not alone." We turned off our lights. Then we heard a noise. A door closing somewhere inside the warehouse. I looked at Megan. She whispered, "Should we leave?" Before I could answer, a voice came from the darkness. "Michael!" I froze. The voice sounded familiar. Too familiar. A man stepped into the light. It was Daniel. Megan gasped. "Daniel!" He looked at her. "Hello, Megan." She started crying. "I thought you were dead." Daniel gave a sad smile. "I was supposed to be." I stared at him. "Who are you?" He looked at me. "I'm the man your brother was trying to help." "What happened to Ryan?" Daniel looked away. "He was killed because of me." "Why?" "Because I found the records." "What records?" "Everything." He walked toward us. North Star wasn't just laundering money. Then what was it? They were controlling people. I didn't understand. What does that mean? Politicians, business owners, police officers, judges. He looked at my father. "Your father was only a small part of it." My father looked down. "Who was running it?" Daniel said one name. "Sarah." I felt confused. "Sarah Bennett." Daniel nodded. "She was the real person behind North Star." I looked at my father. "How?" "She used Victor as a front." "Then why did everyone think Victor was in charge?" "Because that's what she wanted." Megan stepped forward. "Where is she?" Daniel looked at her. "Closer than you think." I felt a chill. "What does that mean?" Daniel looked directly at me. "She's been watching you for years." "Where?" He pointed toward the office. "Inside." We followed him. The office was hidden behind a large metal door. Daniel unlocked it. Inside was a small room filled with photographs. I stopped breathing. There were pictures of me, hundreds of them. Me leaving work, me walking Cooper, me shopping, me with Megan, me sleeping in my car, photos from years ago. I stepped backward. "How long?" Daniel said, 7 years. I stared at him. "Since before I met Megan." "Yes." "Why?" "Because Sarah needed to know whether you remembered anything." "Remembered what?" Daniel looked at Megan. She closed her eyes. I turned toward her. "What did I forget?" She didn't answer. Daniel walked toward a wall. There was one photograph larger than the others. It showed me as a teenager, standing beside Ryan, and behind us was Sarah. I stared at the photograph. I recognized the location, our old house, but I didn't remember Sarah being there. Daniel pointed at the picture. "Do you remember that day?" "No." "Look carefully." I stared at it. Something felt familiar. A sound, a voice, a memory. Then suddenly I remembered. I was 15. Ryan was 17. We were standing in the backyard. A woman was talking to us. She gave Ryan a small envelope. I couldn't remember what was inside. Then the memory disappeared. I held my head. "What is happening?" Daniel said, "Your memory was suppressed." I looked at him. "What?" "You witnessed something." "What?" "Something that happened in that house." My father stepped forward. Daniel ignored him. "Your mother discovered that Sarah was using your family. And then she tried to expose her." "What happened?" "Sarah threatened her." "With what?" "With you." I felt sick. "Me?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because Sarah knew your mother would do anything to protect you." I looked at Megan. "How did you become involved?" Daniel answered. "Victor recruited her." Megan nodded. "I was supposed to get close to you." "And find what?" "Evidence." "Did you?" "No." "Then why stay with me?" She looked at me. "Because I fell in love with you." Daniel looked away. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Then Daniel said, "There's something else." "What?" "Ryan didn't die in the crash." I stared at him. "What?" "He survived the crash." My heart stopped. "That's impossible." I saw him. Alive? Yes. Then what happened? Daniel's face became serious. He was taken. By who? Sarah's people. Where? I don't know. Then how do you know? Because I followed them. What happened? They caught me. And I escaped. I couldn't breathe. Are you saying Ryan may have survived? Daniel looked at me. At least for a few hours. Megan covered her mouth. Why didn't you tell me? I couldn't. Why? Because Sarah was listening. Daniel pointed toward the ceiling. There were microphones everywhere. My father looked around. Are there still cameras? Daniel nodded. Probably. Then we heard a faint clicking sound. Daniel's expression changed. Someone just activated the system. I looked toward the door. What does that mean? Daniel whispered, it means they know we're here. The warehouse lights suddenly turned on, every light at once. A loud alarm started ringing. Then a voice came through the speakers. A woman's voice, calm, almost gentle. Michael! I froze. I knew that voice. I had heard it before. But where? The woman continued. You've been looking for me for a very long time. I looked at Daniel. He looked terrified. Then the voice said, but you never asked the most important question. I swallowed. What question? The voice answered, why did your mother erase your memory? The speakers went silent, and then a door behind us slowly opened. A woman stepped into the room. She was older, gray hair, calm expression. And when I saw her face, I immediately recognized her. It was Sarah, the woman I had seen in the photograph with my mother, the woman Ryan had been trying to find, the woman who had been watching me for 7 years. She smiled. Then she said, Michael, you finally came home. Sarah smiled at me. Michael, you finally came home. I couldn't move. For years, I had thought she was just an old family friend, someone my mother trusted, someone who had disappeared from our lives. But now she was standing in front of me, alive, and apparently responsible for everything. I looked at Daniel. Is she the one? Daniel nodded. Sarah laughed softly. Daniel always was dramatic. Megan stepped in front of me. Stay away from him. Sarah looked at her. You still think you can protect him? Megan didn't answer. Sarah turned toward me. Do you know why your mother never told you the truth? Because you threatened her? No. She smiled. Because she was ashamed. Of what? Of what she had done. I felt confused. My mother didn't do anything. Are you sure? Sarah walked toward a table. She picked up an old folder. Your mother wasn't a victim, Michael. Then what was she? She was part of the operation. I shook my head. You're lying. Am I? She opened the folder. Inside were documents, bank transfers, names, dates, and my mother's signature. I stared at the papers. No, Sarah smiled. Your mother helped create North Star. I looked at my father. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Is this true? He finally nodded. Yes. My chest tightened. Why? Your mother was trying to protect us. Sarah laughed. That's what she told herself. I looked at Sarah. What happened to Ryan? Her expression changed. Ryan was reckless. He was my brother. I know. You killed him. No. She looked directly at me. I didn't kill Ryan. Then who did? She pointed at my father. He knows. I turned toward him. My father looked devastated. Tell him. Sarah's voice was calm. My father took a breath. Ryan wasn't supposed to die. What does that mean? The accident was supposed to scare him. Who caused it? My father looked at Sarah. Victor. Sarah smiled. Victor was supposed to intercept Ryan, and he crashed. Yes, but Ryan survived. I froze. Daniel had already told me that. What happened after the crash? My father closed his eyes. Victor took Ryan. Where? I don't know. Sarah interrupted. I do. Everyone turned toward her. Sarah walked to another table. She picked up an envelope. Then she handed it to me. Inside was a photograph. Ryan, alive, sitting in a chair. His face was bruised, but he was alive. The photograph was dated October 15th, the day after the accident. I couldn't breathe. Where was this taken? Sarah didn't answer. Where? Fairview. I stared at the photograph. Is he alive now? Sarah smiled. That's the question you've been asking, isn't it? I stepped toward her. Where is my brother? She looked at me. Do you really want to know? Yes. Then you have to listen. I nodded. Sarah sat down. 6 years ago, Ryan discovered that North Star wasn't just moving money. What else? We were collecting information. About who? Everyone. She pointed toward the walls. Politicians, judges, business owners, police officers. Then she looked at me. And families. What did you have on my family? Everything. She opened another folder. Your father's debts, your mother's financial records, Ryan's investigation, and your own medical records. I stared at her. Why? Because information is power. Why were you watching me? Because you were the cleanest member of the family. I didn't understand. Cleanest? No debts, no criminal history, no connection to North Star. She smiled. Perfect. Perfect for what? Taking the blame. I felt sick. Sarah continued. We needed someone to take responsibility for the money. And you chose me. Yes. Why? Because nobody would believe you were innocent. I looked at Megan. She was crying. You knew. She nodded. I knew they wanted to frame you. Then why didn't you tell me? Because if I told you, they would kill you. I looked at Daniel. What did Ryan discover? Daniel stepped forward. That Sarah had been planning the frame up for years. I looked at Sarah. Why didn't you just kill me? She smiled. Because Ryan wouldn't let me. I froze. What? Sarah leaned back. Your brother made a deal. What deal? He agreed to disappear if I left you alone. I stared at her. You're saying Ryan sacrificed himself for me? Yes. Where is he? Sarah didn't answer. Where is Ryan? She looked at the clock. He's closer than you think. Then the lights went out. Again. A loud crash came from the hallway. Daniel grabbed Megan. Get down! Gunshots echoed through the warehouse. Everyone dropped to the floor. I heard glass breaking. Someone shouted. Then another gunshot. My father pushed me behind a desk. Stay here, I heard Sarah scream, then silence. The lights came back on. Sarah was gone. So was Daniel. Megan was beside me. My father was bleeding from his shoulder. Dad, I'm fine. You've been shot. It's just a scratch. I looked around. Where's Sarah? Gone. Where's Daniel? Gone. Then I saw something on the floor, a small piece of paper. I picked it up. There was one sentence written on it. If you want Ryan alive, come alone. Below it was an address. I looked at Megan. She immediately shook her head. Don't go. But if Ryan is alive, we don't know if it's true. What if it is? My father stood up. You're not going. Why? Because that's exactly what they want. I looked at him. You've been protecting me my entire life. Yes, and look where that got us. He looked down. I continued. I need to know what happened to Ryan. My father sighed. Then we're going together. Megan looked at him. No. He looked at her. You stay here. Why? Because someone needs to protect the evidence. Megan shook her head. No. I looked at both of them. Then I realized something. Someone had lied to me. Maybe Sarah. Maybe my father. Maybe Megan. Maybe all three. But there was one thing I knew for certain. If Ryan was alive, I had to find him. We left the warehouse. The address led us to an old motel outside town. Room 214. I stood outside the door. My heart was pounding. I looked at my father. He nodded. I opened the door. The room was dark. There was a chair in the middle. A television was playing static, and on the bed was another photograph. I picked it up. It showed Ryan, but this photograph was different. He was older. His hair was longer. His face looked thinner, and beneath the photograph was a date, 3 months ago. My hand started shaking. If the photograph was real, Ryan could still be alive. Then the television suddenly stopped showing static. A video appeared. Ryan was sitting in front of the camera. He looked directly at me. Michael, I couldn't breathe. I know you're watching this. He paused. I don't know how much they told you, but there's something you need to understand. Ryan leaned closer. Sarah isn't the person you should be afraid of. The screen went black. Then one final sentence appeared. Find the man who raised you. I slowly turned toward my father. He was standing behind me. And for the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own father. I slowly turned toward my father. He was standing behind me. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of him. What does that mean? He didn't answer. I looked at the television. The message was still on the screen. Find the man who raised you. I looked back at my father. Ryan said that. I know. What was he trying to tell me? I don't know. Stop lying to me. My father looked away. Michael, there are things you don't understand. Then explain them. He sat on the edge of the bed. For several seconds, he didn't say anything. Then he whispered, I am not your biological father. The room went completely silent. I stared at him. What? Your mother was pregnant before we met. I couldn't speak. Ryan was your mother's biological son. I felt like the entire world had shifted. And me? You were adopted. Who were my real parents? My father looked at the floor. I don't know who your father was. You don't know? Your mother never told me. Then why did you raise me? Because I loved you. I stepped backward. Why didn't Mom tell me? Because she was afraid. Of Sarah? No, he looked at me. Of your biological father. My heart started pounding. Who was he? My father shook his head. I never met him. Then how could he be dangerous? Because your mother said he was involved with North Star. I couldn't believe it. Was he Victor? No. Sarah? No. Then who? My father looked at me. That's what Ryan was trying to find. I remembered the video. Ryan had said I needed to find the man who raised me. But why? My father wasn't my biological father. So what was Ryan trying to tell me? I walked toward the television. The video had disappeared. I checked the room. There was a small envelope on the table. Inside was an old birth certificate. My name was written on it, but the father's name had been blacked out. I looked at my father. Who did this? Your mother. Why? To protect you. I laughed bitterly. Everyone keeps using those words. Then I noticed another piece of paper. It was an old hospital record. There was a date, the day I was born, but something was wrong. The hospital listed my mother's name. The father's name was different. I stared at it. Who is David Carter? My father looked shocked. Where did you see that name? Here. He took the paper from me. His hands began shaking. I thought he was dead. Who is he? My father sat down. Your biological father. I felt dizzy. Where is he? I don't know. Is he still alive? I don't know. Then my phone vibrated. Unknown number. A message appeared. Now you know. I typed, "Who is David Carter?" The reply came almost immediately. "You already know him." I stared at the message. Another one appeared. "You've seen him many times." I looked around the motel room. Who could it be? My father suddenly stood up. "We need to leave." Why? Now? Why? He pointed toward the window. A car had stopped outside. Black SUV, the same one. They found us. We left through the back entrance. We ran across the parking lot. My father grabbed my arm. Don't look back. But I did. Someone was following us. A man in a dark jacket. He stopped when he saw me looking. Then he smiled. I recognized him. He was the man from the photograph beside my father. The unknown man from Ryan's investigation. I shouted, "Who are you?" He didn't answer. He simply walked away. We got into the car and drove. For several minutes, nobody spoke. Then I asked, "Dad, who was that?" My father kept his eyes on the road. "His name is Thomas." "Thomas what?" "Thomas Carter." My heart stopped. "Carter?" My father's hands tightened around the steering wheel. "Yes." "Is he related to David?" He didn't answer. "Dad." "He's David's brother." I stared out the window. Why had Thomas been watching us? And why had Ryan photographed him? We drove back toward our house. But when we arrived, something was wrong. The front door was open. My father stopped the car. "Stay here." "No." He looked at me. I said, "Stay here." He walked inside. A few seconds later, he shouted, "Michael!" I ran inside. The house had been completely searched. Drawers were open, cabinets were overturned, documents were scattered everywhere, but nothing seemed stolen. Then I realized what they had been looking for, Ryan's phone. I checked my pocket. It was still there. My father looked at me. "They didn't find it." "How do you know?" "Because you're still alive." Then we heard a noise upstairs. Someone was walking. My father reached for something in his jacket. "Stay behind me." We went upstairs. The bedroom door was open. Inside, Megan was standing beside the window. She turned around. "You're back." I stared at her. What happened here? "They came looking for the phone." "Who?" "I don't know." "Where were you?" "Downstairs." "Then how did you know they came for the phone?" She went silent. I immediately felt suspicious. "Megan." She looked at me. "I saw them." "Who?" "3 men." "What did they look like?" She hesitated. "One of them was Thomas." My father looked at her. "You saw Thomas?" She nodded. "Yes." "Where did he go?" "He asked me where you were." "And what did you say?" "Nothing." I looked at her. "Are you sure?" She nodded. Then my phone vibrated. A new message. "Don't trust Megan." I stared at the screen. Megan noticed my expression. "What happened?" I didn't answer. Another message appeared. "She knows where Ryan is." I slowly looked at Megan. "Where is my brother?" Her face changed. "What?" "You heard me." "I don't know." "You're lying." "I'm not." "Then why did someone tell me you know where Ryan is?" She looked terrified. "I swear I don't." My father stepped between us. "Michael, stop." I looked at him. "Why are you defending her?" "Because she's telling the truth." "How do you know?" He didn't answer. I suddenly realized something. My father knew more than he was admitting. "Megan," she looked at me. "Did you ever meet Ryan after the accident?" She started crying. "Yes." I felt my heart stop. "When?" 6 years ago. "Where?" "Fairview." My father closed his eyes. What happened? Megan wiped her tears. Ryan was alive. I couldn't breathe. Where is he now? I don't know. You met him. Yes. What did he say? He told me to stay away from you. Why? Because he thought you were being watched. By Sarah? No. Then who? She looked at my father. By your biological father. I stared at her. David? She nodded. David Carter. My father suddenly grabbed the edge of the table. That's impossible. Megan looked at him. You know it isn't. He shook his head. David died. No. Megan whispered. He's alive. The room became silent. Then someone knocked on the front door. 3 slow knocks. Everyone froze. Another knock. Then a man's voice came from downstairs. Michael. I recognized the voice. It was the same voice from Ryan's recording. The man who had warned him. The man who had been watching us. My father whispered, "Don't open the door." But the voice continued. I think it's time you met your real father. I stared at Megan. She was crying. My father looked terrified. And then the man outside said one final sentence. Your mother lied about why she gave you away. The door slowly opened, and standing on the porch was a man I had never seen before. But somehow, I knew exactly who he was. David Carter, my biological father. I stood frozen in the hallway. The man on the porch looked directly at me. He was older than I expected. Gray hair, tired eyes, a scar across his left cheek, but there was something about his face that felt strangely familiar. Not because I had seen him before, because I had seen pieces of him in myself. He looked at me and said, Michael. I couldn't speak. My father stepped in front of me. David, leave. David looked at him. You've had 21 years. 21 years of what? 21 years of pretending to be his father. I looked at the man who had raised me. Is he telling the truth? My father closed his eyes. Yes. I felt my chest tighten. David stepped inside. I didn't come here to hurt you. Then why are you here? Because Ryan wanted you to know the truth. Where is Ryan? David looked at me. He's dead. Everything went silent. I felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. You said he was alive. He was? For how long? 6 years. My heart broke. What happened? David looked down. Ryan survived the crash. I listened. Sarah kept him hidden because he had evidence. Where? In a safe house. Why didn't he come home? Because every time he tried, someone found him. Who? Sarah's people. I looked at Megan. She was crying. David continued. Ryan knew that if he returned, they would use him to find you. So he stayed away. Yes. Then why did he contact Megan? Because he knew he was running out of time. What happened to him? David took a deep breath. 3 months ago, Ryan was captured. By Sarah? No. Then who? David looked at me. Thomas. I remembered the man from the warehouse. The man following us? Yes. What did he want? The evidence. Did Ryan give it to him? No. Then where is it? David pointed toward the old phone. Inside that phone. I looked at it. But we already opened it. Not everything. David took the phone. He pressed a hidden button on the side. A small compartment opened. Inside was a tiny memory card. I stared at it. Ryan hid this. David nodded. We need to see what's on it. I inserted the card into my phone. A single video appeared. I pressed play. Ryan appeared on the screen. He looked exhausted, but he was smiling. Michael, if you're watching this, then Dad finally found you. I looked at David. Ryan continued. I need you to know something. None of this was your fault. He took a deep breath. Mom gave you away because she believed it would save your life. I felt tears forming. Your biological father wasn't supposed to survive. Ryan looked toward the camera, but he did. David lowered his head. Ryan continued. David spent years trying to expose North Star. Sarah found him. She thought he was dead. That's why you were safe. I looked at David. Ryan smiled slightly. You probably have a million questions. I know I did. But there is one thing I need you to understand. Ryan leaned closer. Family isn't always about blood. My eyes filled with tears. The man who raised you is your father. I looked at the man beside me. My father was crying. Ryan continued. He made mistakes. Big ones. But he loved you. And that's what matters. The video paused. Then Ryan appeared again. This time, he looked directly into the camera. Michael, if you found this, then Sarah probably knows everything. Don't try to get revenge. Don't become like them. Take the evidence to the police. End it. The video ended. Nobody spoke. Then we heard sirens outside. David looked toward the window. They're here. I stepped outside. Several police cars were arriving. Behind them was an FBI vehicle. I looked at David. You called them? He nodded. Years ago. Why wait until now? Because I needed the evidence. I handed the memory card to the officer. Within hours, everything changed. The documents from North Star were enough to expose the entire operation. Bank records, secret accounts, photographs, names, recordings, everything Ryan had collected. Sarah was arrested 2 days later. Thomas was arrested a week after that. Several former North Star employees were charged, and the investigation revealed something none of us expected. My mother had been secretly working with federal investigators before she died. She had been collecting evidence against Sarah for years. She wasn't part of the operation. She had infiltrated it, and when she realized Sarah was going to use me as a scapegoat, she gave me away. Not because she didn't love me, because she loved me enough to disappear from my life. My father confessed everything, the debts, the lies, the secrets, but he also gave investigators information that helped bring down the remaining members of North Star. As for Megan, I didn't know what to do with her. For years, our relationship had started with a lie. She had been sent to investigate me, but somewhere along the way, she had chosen me instead. She protected me. She protected Ryan, and she risked her life to keep the evidence hidden. Could I forgive her? I didn't know. But I knew I couldn't erase 7 years of love. So I didn't leave immediately. We went to counseling. We talked. We fought. We cried. And slowly we began rebuilding everything from the beginning, but there was still one thing I couldn't stop thinking about. Ryan, the brother I had believed was dead for 6 years. The brother who had sacrificed everything to protect me. 3 months after Sarah's arrest, I received a letter. There was no return address. I opened it. Inside was a photograph. Ryan, standing beside a lake. He looked older, but he was smiling. On the back of the photograph was a message. I'm sorry I couldn't come home, but I'm glad you're finally free. I stared at the photograph for a long time. Then I noticed something strange. There was another sentence underneath. Don't look for me. I'm finally where I want to be. I showed the photograph to Megan. She started crying. He's alive. I nodded. But he doesn't want to be found. For the first time in 6 years, I understood something. Maybe closure doesn't always mean finding someone. Sometimes it means knowing they're alive, knowing they are safe, and knowing they chose their own path. A year later, I visited my mother's grave. I brought 2 flowers, one for her, one for Ryan. I stood there for a long time. Then I said, I finally understand. The wind moved through the trees. For years, I thought my family had been destroyed by secrets. But maybe the truth was more complicated. Secrets had hurt us. Lies had separated us. Fear had controlled us. But love had also kept people alive. My mother gave me a way to save me. My brother disappeared to protect me. Megan betrayed me before she learned how to love me. And the man who raised me, despite all his mistakes, never stopped being my father. I left the cemetery as the sun was setting. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. For a moment, I froze. Then I opened the message. It said, "You were always my little brother." I stared at the screen. My hand started shaking. I typed one word. Ryan? The message was read, but there was no reply. I waited. Nothing. Then another message appeared. Don't worry about me. Live your life. I looked toward the sky, and for the first time in 6 years, I smiled. Because maybe the greatest mystery of my life wasn't who had betrayed me. It wasn't who had killed Ryan. It wasn't even who my real father was. The greatest mystery was how someone could disappear from your life and still find a way to remind you that they never really left. And that's when I finally understood what Ryan had been trying to tell me all along. Family isn't always the people who share your blood. Sometimes, family is the person who disappears so you can survive. And sometimes, the person you thought you lost forever is still out there somewhere, watching from a distance, hoping you're okay, and waiting for the day when you can finally live without being afraid. That was the last message I ever received from Ryan, but I never deleted it because every time I feel like giving up, I read those words again. Don't worry about me, live your life. So that's exactly what I did. I lived, and for the first time, I wasn't running from the past anymore.